Center, and Sioux Falls making a return trip to the playoffs in the dark jerseys. Opening tip to the Skyforce.
Mentioned that Sioux Falls has had the more roster turnover, that among their key players. Westchester's added some people since they last played, but mainly off the bench.
Here's Liggins turning the corner against Trice. And
on the other end,
Jordan Biczynski played the first 49 games. Off the penetration from ANTETOKOUNMPO, it is Keith Wright who opens up the scoring for the Knicks.
Keith Wright, one of those mainly defensive-minded frontline players for Westchester, but has played well down the stretch as a starter, getting a little better each game.
Rodney Magruder has worked his way into the top 25 of the prospect watch list. It's Stokes that misses from the mid-range, and the Knicks are in transition. Pull up ANTETOKOUNMPO.
Well, that's not normally TA's shot, only shooting just over 20% from deep, but he has hit it better during the second half of the year.
ANTETOKOUNMPO has only played one time against Sioux Falls. He was called up to the New York Knicks during 3 meetings. Off the turnover, Trice to Fredette, a 3, rattled in. Head coach Mike Miller wouldn't give.
Well, one reason for that is ANTETOKOUNMPO hits again off to the good start for a 10-2 Nick lead. One reason for that is that, again, there's a lot of roster turnover during the course of the D-League season. Sometimes you can't read too much into a season series because some guys played in certain games, others did not.
Paulo, this time too strong. Biczynski boxing out Stokes. The Knicks again on the run. ANTETOKOUNMPO. Sioux Falls early in the first quarter. Keith Wright against a smaller defender gets to the rim for 2.
And Keith Wright, normally not known for his scoring, only averaging about 7 or 8 points a game. But as you said, David, he noticed the big mismatch, so you have to take advantage, and he did.
Liggins, pocket pass on the bounce to Stokes. He is so nimble at 6'7", 250. And 4 minutes deep. Here's Fredette. Awkward release, no good. ANTETOKOUNMPO on the offensive glass.
And for our NBA fans watching at home, well, they should be aware that ANTETOKOUNMPO, like Fredette, like Stokes, had a 10-day contract with the New York Knicks earlier this year.
Magruder in the corner, no good. And that was Trawick with the loose ball foul pushing right as the Knicks reclaimed as
much of what
we mentioned the defensive prowess.
Nearly 18 turnovers a game that they force, as you mentioned, as a result of nearly 10 steals per game for Sioux Falls. That, the #1 figure in the league.
Jimmer Fredette has re-entered here in the first quarter. Atypical for Fredette to leave the game and come back in the first frame. Stokes abusing Atkins to the rack, and all Darion can do is
Stokes 6 points to this point.
For some extra artillery.
Yes, earlier this year, in fact, it was the night that Jimmer Fredette made his Westchester debut several weeks into the season. Floyd Mayweather was on hand, seated courtside, a good friend of Jordan Crawford. You want to talk about being the big man on campus that night. Mr. Crawford was indeed.
Stokes off target, rebound by Fredette. His head is up. Penetrates inside, hangs with the left.
That crispness offensively, and there, yet another example, yet another Westchester turn.
A presence for the New York Knicks here at Westchester County, checking out his former teammates. Jarnell Stokes inside, goes to the left hand and scores to increase the lead.
And increases point total. Porzingis, Jose Calderon, also Sasha Vujovic along with Mr. Galloway. They are not being treated to a very good Westchester performance.
Stokes likes the matchup against Atkins. Trawick is open from deep.
Jabril Trawick now 3 of 3. He's just doing it too easily. Doing it easily that time is Atkins for the Knicks.
Adding 2 to the total, the UVA product. Under a minute to go in the first quarter. Sioux Falls has been relentless after falling behind early, led by that man, Jarnell Stokes, who has it knocked away.
To knock it out of bounds in the previous trip, Atkins was able to make Stokes.
By that man, Jarnell Stokes, who has it knocked away.
To knock it out of bounds in the previous trip, Atkins was able to make Stokes pass it up, so he started to come around defensively against the big horse inside.
5 on the timer. Trawick, reverse attempt and a foul.
Totals are not among the league leaders, but they're shelf on the catalyst, and he was right there. Good all-around player. He can pass, can drive, can shoot, good on the defensive end, had 5 steals in a recent game down the stretch.
Difference is 10, 3:30 to go in the first half. The handoff, Weber. Deflected out, it'll stay with the Skyforce.
Well, Westchester, in nearly tripling their 10 wins, second worst in the league. They've been blown out had been an assistant for the Austin Spurs, who are the D-League affiliate of the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, when you come from Camp Greg Popovich, you would expect nothing less than a great job.
Although I think he's been kind to you throughout the season with halftime interviews, no?
Oh.
Stokes with the left hand.
None better. None better. None better.
The lead back to 12 after Westchester cut it to 10. Trice maneuvering his way on the baseline, and it's collected by Trawick. Stokes, baseline. Continuation for a chance at 3.
It was the New York Knicks, and you got to look there for a moment at some of the New York Knicks players who are in attendance. And so after a fast start, Antetokounmpo slowing down. He does have 9 points and 4 boards, but aside from Fredette, come the second half, looking ahead, David, someone is going to need to step up offensively for Westchester, really more than a someone. Need to be more of a team effort.
Trawick against Antetokounmpo. It's out of bounds to the Knicks, and on the prior possession, Trice on the move. Bitchin. 2 minutes gone by, second half. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Stokes spinning on Bitchinski, draws the help, and scores plus the foul.
Well, not enough. As high as 29, he can now get to 20. Work out for him. Sometimes that's the case. Guys find that they don't fit in, either basketball-wise or off the court for some reason, and they make their way back, and there's often a spot for them here in the D-League.
Liggins to Magruder, matched up against Antetokounmpo. Driving baseline to find Trawick, who is hammered.
So Westchester down a dozen. Chance for Sioux Falls series, as we mentioned earlier, if you're joining us late, folks. All the playoff series.
Calls for game 2 and game 3 if necessary, putting an even bigger importance on game 1. Liggins wasn't watching, nearly got stripped by Trice. He recovers and fires to the corner from Magruder. Rebounded by Sioux Falls, but then lost in the paint. Trice 1-on-3, looks back, Fredette. Too strong on a 3, and a battle for the rebound.
When those big hands get on the basketball in good position, he's able to finish, and of course, not a lot of men his size can necessarily do that consistent.
Down to 11, a chant of defense from the home Westchester crowd.
Crowds have been good here. If Westchester gets close, they'll be into it.
Over the shoulder pass to Magruder, beautiful cut to the rim.
And DeAndre Liggins with the feed. This occasion moving Westchester within a dozen. Sioux Falls building up a big early lead in this one if you're joining us late, and they have not relented since.
Knicks scored the first 8. Liggins thought he was drawing contact there, picked up by Magruder, end of the shot clock. Stokes gets an offensive rebound and a reset for the Skyforce.
And there's the offensive rebounding by
Liggins thought he was drawing contact there, picked up by Magruder, end of the shot clock. Stokes gets an offensive rebound and a reset for the Skyforce.
And there's the offensive rebounding by Stokes that Coach Miller of Westchester was concerned with. Hasn't done a lot of it, did it right there.
Sioux Falls outscored 8-0 to start the game. They took a 17-point lead later on in the first quarter. And Trawick gets all the way to the rim.
At Bowling Green, playing for the former Syracuse star Louis Orr. No longer the coach at Bowling Green, but was then.
With the early advantages.
And you look at those brackets, David, it's interesting. Like in the NBA in recent years, the teams in the West seem to be more high-flying, much more offensive-minded here in the D-League than the teams in the East. We've talked about the defensive physicality of leading the league. They average 123 points a game. Brackets, David, it's interesting. Like in the NBA in recent years, the teams in the West seem to be more high-flying, much more offensive-minded here in the D-League than the teams in the East. We've talked about the defensive physicality of leading the league. They average 123 points a game. A team like the LA Defenders, as hitting on the shot here is Whittington, who we haven't heard from for a while, and it's Sioux Falls by 14. But the Defenders, despite their former Marquette star, #1 in the league individually at 26 per game. Something in the air out west.
Crawford elevating to the rim. And what's interesting about the playoffs this season, 3 returners in the East, 3 newcomers in the West.
Wide open.
Whittington off target. Antetokounmpo grabs the board. Under 3 minutes to go in the third. These teams separated by a dozen.
I'll tell you, Westchester's still within reach despite the subpar play.
Atkins facing up against Stokes. Briante Weber in here in the third quarter.
Man advantage. Liggins slow getting up.
Trice boxing out, helped out by Rashad James. He's got an explode,
so to speak, between Fredette and Stokes, though they don't guard each other. Stokes has one going away for Sioux Falls.
Welcome back inside the Westchester County Center. Game 1 of a best-of-3 in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Top-seeded Sioux Falls turning it over against 4th-seeded Westchester, making their first. With Joey Waller, David Resnick here in White Plains as Sioux Falls turning it over against 4th-seeded Westchester, making their first. With Joey Waller, David Resnick here in White Plains as Sioux Falls looks to grab a 1-0 series lead. Whittington the steal. Antetokounmpo on his hip.
Westchester foul charts number 43, Thanasis, Antetokounmpo.
2 Knicks from Westchester earning 10-day contracts with the New.
Whittington the steal. Antetokounmpo on his hip.
Westchester foul charts number 43, Thanasis, Antetokounmpo.
2 Knicks from Westchester earning 10-day contracts with the New York Knicks, Antetokounmpo and Jimmer Fredette.
Liggins, a contested 3. And a foul on the follow by Rodney Magruder.
Magruder for Antetokounmpo, as it's called, a goaltend offensively, somewhat intended. So Westchester, hopefully for them, can get off to a better start in Game 2 on Friday night. And you know, you mentioned, Dave, the fact that regular season performance by Westchester against Sioux Falls has proven to be somewhat insignificant here today in Game 1 of the playoffs. Westchester against the other 3 playoff teams in the East was 8-6.
Leaning in for a missed shot, followed up by Stokes, who just outmuscles everybody for the loot. Played a number of games with Sioux Falls as an assignment player from the NBA. Following a trade and a release, returned to Sioux Falls. He's been an absolutely dominant force as the Skyforce will improve to 25-4 with Jarnell Stokes in the lineup. Final minute of play, 1 on the timer. Boo Paulo rims in and out. The Knicks made a couple attempts.
That against Boo and company, Westchester has had no picnic basket here today.
Half minute to go. Sioux Falls as good as advertised.
Kristaps Porzingis and his buddies headed out. The Knicks start taking in all of this one, so he gets a check mark for staying.